Bill,
Yeah?
did you know that Newport Beach has 2 piers?
2? I thought it was 3.
Well, maybe at one time, but that must be the Lost Pier you're thinking of now.
Oh, okay. I've got one for you.
What?
Do you know that Newport Beach has like 30 miles of white sandy beaches?
Oh my gosh, that cannot be 30 miles. That's a long way.
30
Going,
miles. Now, that does include some of the old ashtrays from Fashion Island. They took the old ashtrays and dumped them out on the... But there is a Fashion Island. It's a shopping center, right? It's
oh,
huge.
yes, I know that well. Yes, yes. Not too far from the beach, but close enough to get into trouble. Yeah.
What are you doing on
Newport
today's
Beach.
program?
Today's program, I'll be exploring an amazing wetland and bird sanctuary called Back Bay, right here on the map.
Wow.
How about you?
I'm going to visit a little gem called the Sherman Library and Garden. It's in Corona del Mar.
That's a fabulous place.
Yeah.
I've been there many times.
Okay.
And then finally, I'm going to visit a very popular restaurant, the Bluewater Grill in Newport Beach.
So it's one of the 450 restaurants
That
that are
would be
in
one of the 450 restaurants, but not associated with one of the 3,300 hotel rooms.
Let's start off today with Susan at Back Bay.
I'm here today in Newport Beach with my good friend Barbara Greer, who's going to fill us in on everything about bird watching. So Barbara, welcome. We're so happy to have you with us today. My first question is, where are we? Where are we really?
We're in the upper Newport Back Bay, which is an estuary.
All right, tell me what an estuary is again.
Well, estuary is an extremely important habitat for many different animals and crustaceans, invertebrates, fish, birds, because it has such a unique formation. There's fresh water meeting salt water, and that forms many different habitats for these creatures.
And the birds love that.
Especially the birds that breed in the Arctic. They will come back in the winter.
They come here?
Yes.
Oh, who knew? Oh, so this is a very special place. Now, when I look around here, I mean, it really does look so desolate, but I think there's a low tide going on right now. Is that right?
This is low tide.
So high tide, it will be a whole different terrain we're looking at, and the birds will just flourish even in that terrain too. Kind
Absolutely.
of environment. Barb, how did you get started in bird watching?
Primarily listening to the birds in my backyard.
But how would you know what their song was, or how did you take classes? Did you watch YouTube? Did you join the Audubon Club? There's so many ways to do this, I imagine. What did you do?
So I started by taking natural history classes and being introduced to birding through those classes.
Now this would be through Saddleback, the real Saddleback College.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I found out through other students and other leaders in our class that Sea and Sage Audubon has an educational program that is absolutely outstanding.
Oh, good to know.
We have a teacher who has been teaching for many, many years, who has actually recorded the sounds of the birds that we find in Orange County. Mm-hmm. Her husband was an amazing photographer, and she has digitized our classes. So I've been studying with her for 7 years.
Oh my goodness, I had no idea. Yeah. Now your studying often takes you to other places around the world too. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, mostly what I study is the birds that we would see in Orange County or in the western United States.
All right.
But I have traveled to other places around the world, and whenever I go, I always contact a birding guide and see the birds I can in those countries too.
Oh, that's wonderful. Barb, what kind of birds can we expect to see here?
On our way in, we saw the osprey nest, which was constructed about 1996 with the hope that ospreys would come back to the upper Newport Bay. And sure enough, it took 10 years,
Really?
but a pair of osprey came and they started nesting and having babies. So we have osprey again in the upper Newport Back Bay.
Now, the nests, I thought it was very interesting. I think of ospreys as nesting in trees, but this was a special structure that was built just for them.
Right.
And that they have no problem with being way out there in the open with everything else, but that's just what they do.
They do like that.
Oh, it was fascinating. Now, what other kind of birds do we see here?
Well, this time of year, this is May, so many of the birds that are here in the winter are up in the Arctic breeding. So in the fall, they'll come back and they'll be here all winter. So we'll have a large amount of beautiful, amazing shorebirds. Right now, we have birds of the chaparral. We have birds, flying bird. What is it doing? It's kiting.
Why?
And it's a kite.
What?
It's yeah,
It's sailing. It's a kite. It's called kiting. It's like earlier we saw a white-tailed kite. We see mockingbirds. We saw a bird of the marsh, which is a common yellowthroat. We saw out on the tidal flats, we saw black skimmers that skim along the water with their lower beak. So there are many birds here right now. It's a little bit of a cloudy day, so none of the birds that feed on insects are out at this point because the insects aren't out. The sun has to be out for the insects.
Well, do they look for things in the water?
Well, that would be a different type of bird.
Different kind of bird.
Yes.
Well, now, is it better to be here on an overcast day like today, or when it's sunny and bright? When do you see the most bird activity?
Well, birds that feed on insects are going to want there to be sunlight.
Okay.
But right now, we got to see some birds that we don't normally see very often
right.
because it was overcast.
All right. So any time is good.
Any
is what
time
you're
is
saying.
good.
All
Any
right.
time is good.
Good to know. And
The terns are on our side. Well, here comes a skimmer. Right by the terns. We got 3 birds right there.
so, Barb, on these sunny days when that sun is out and the birds are all flocking around, what is it that attracts them to plants? What kind of plants are they looking for?
So we have different habitats. So the habitat that is mostly salt marsh, the plants have a high salt level in them. And right now I'm looking at a wonderful plant called salt marsh seabeak.
Okay.
And it is a very endangered endemic plant. And surrounding it is pickleweed. And we have a particular sparrow that lives and likes that type of pickleweed, and it's called a building sparrow, Savannah sparrow. And we just saw feeding in the plant a common yellowthroat bird. So when the shorebirds are here, they're going to put their beak into the mud, and the beaks are formed for what type of food they like.
Oh,
So that's a really interesting thing to see, but that won't be until the fall or
their
winter.
beaks go into the mud
Yes.
looking for...
Invertebrates, crustaceans, snails,
Really?
worms. Yeah.
Oh, fascinating.
There's a wonderful exhibit up at the Peter and Mary Moose Center at the other end
Oh, okay.
of the park that has the different sizes of the beaks,
Of beaks.
and what type of invertebrate they're looking for.
Fascinating. Say the name of that center again.
Peter and Mary Moose Center.
Okay. Now, there's another center that we went by earlier that is more of an interpretive center that maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. First of all, what is an interpretive center for people who don't know?
So both of these centers have displays that will interpret the habitat and what lives in the habitat for
I
us.
see.
So the Science Center we stopped by earlier has many school groups coming to tour it.
Okay.
But it is open to the public on certain days.
All
and they
right,
have
good to know.
fabulous floating docks with exhibits about sea life and
All right. Well, that
different
sounds
things.
fascinating. And they have docents or volunteers that do tours and all that, explain everything.
we have amazing volunteers here through the Back Bay
good.
Conservation Center.
Uh-huh.
And so there's hundreds of opportunities for volunteering. If a person liked kayaking, they could learn how to do kayak tours
Oh,
here.
how interesting. That's
So
a lot of
it's a
things.
lot of different
Who
things that
knew?
people can do.
Who knew? Barbara, thank you so much for taking the time to fill us in and educating us all on this fascinating hobby, and I hope some of our Laguna Woods people will explore this as well. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
And Bill, what are you up to today?
Thank you, Susan. I'm here with Catherine Gresh. Thank you very much for joining us. We are at the Sherman Library and Garden here in basically Newport Beach. And I can end this interview right now just by saying, wow, this place is amazing.
It is.
Now, it's the library and garden, which came first, the library or the garden?
The garden came first.
Okay,
But-
is it Sherman? Is that like Sherman Oaks?
Sherman Oaks was named for Moses Hazelton Sherman.
Okay,
And Moses Hazelton Sherman came from Vermont in the late 1800s. He came to Arizona.
to get warm.
For health reasons as well.
Okay.
Made his money in land, mining, banks, all kinds of ventures. And he, in 1890, he decided California was where it was at. So he moved over here, and he did many of the same things that he did in Arizona.
But did he develop the gardens?
No, he had nothing to do with it at that point. He was like a venture capitalist, I think you could call him in
Okay.
today's world.
Sure.
He owned, again, land, cattle. He owned Colorado River territory, grew cotton, owned land down into Mexico in the Tejon Ranch area. And he was a big player in the years when you had the early starting up of California economy.
Okay.
And in 1914, he found himself in need of a secretary, an aide. And he went to the Mission Inn, which is in Riverside, and he had a friend there, Miller, who was his friend. And he came across Arnold Haskell. He was very taken by Arnold. And he asked him to come work for him because he needed some assistance.
Oh.
Now, this is about the time income tax is coming into being. So he needed assistance. And Arnold was his right hand through the end of his life.
So Arnold was the guy with the garden.
Arnold was the
Okay.
garden lover.
Okay. There
That
had to
was-
be a
that
garden
was
lover
his
here
idea.
somewhere.
Yes, it
Yeah.
wasn't Sherman. And Sherman's daughters were not interested in taking over any of his enterprises after he passed away in 32.
Okay.
So there's Arnold Haskell, who is stepped into that role. And he created the Sherman Foundation in 51.
Okay.
And it is what is creating what we have today.
Catherine, you talked about the tours. Take us on a little tour, vocally, a little
Okay.
voiceover.
All right. Normally, when a group comes in, they come in the front gate or the back gate. And we have a rendezvous point in the tea garden. The tea garden was the first developed
Okay.
by Arnold Haskell. And it's gone through some changes. Currently, it has a wonderful fountain collection, and it is the setting for weddings. You can reserve the gardens for a wedding event. And so that would happen in the tea garden. And in that particular garden, you're going to find a very subtle color palette.
I
We have
noticed.
a lot of fuchsias.
Yeah.
We have beautiful, currently blooming Brunfelsia.
Of course, I would call it purple.
They are purple, lavender, and white, and they change color over time. But right now they're in full bloom. And so there's a great backdrop for any color scheme that
Sure.
any bride would choose.
Now, do the exhibits change throughout the year?
The exhibits in the Adobe change.
Okay.
And we'll talk about the Adobe. We can go right to the Adobe now because that would be one of our main starting points.
Okay, let's
because
go.
that gives you the history. And I've given you a little bit of the history about Moses Hazelton Sherman and Arnold Haskell and how they met and began this collaboration.
So from the tea garden, where do we go?
From the tea garden, we go down some steps. The steps have been arranged with small hens and chicks is the name of the echeveria that are planted underneath the steps. So that's a focal point. And then we turn to the right and we go to the adobe.
Okay.
Now the adobe is the house that was built originally in 1940 by a family who lived
Which was a
here.
residence. Okay, yeah.
It was a residence. A family of 4 lived here.
From there, we go to...
From there, we would go through the rear entrance that is in the adobe now to the library.
Okay.
And the library, as I said, is not open now because of COVID, but it's about a 3-story structure. It faces on the Pacific Coast Highway.
Wow.
And there's a downstairs level, which is the working area. There's a main level, which is mostly administrative. And then you go up a few stairs to the stacks. And the stacks are really amazing because of what they have there. And in addition to the books and the directories and the Southwest American history that they have at the end of each of the stacks a plein air painting. Now, a plein air painting, it's a painting that was done by people in the early part of the century, last century. They would go outdoors and they would paint.
Okay. You see that a lot around Southern California.
You do. And it's a particular Southern California type of painting. It's beautiful paintings. And we have a number that are really quite valuable because Mr. Haskell also collected them.
Oh, he wasn't a painter himself.
No,
But he, okay.
no. But he appreciated it.
Where we go from the library?
We go right here where we are standing now. This is the succulent garden. And it's a very interesting developmental story as well. We have, every summer, we have interns who come. One summer we had a man named Matt Maggio who came. I mention him because he is solely responsible for creating and maintaining this garden.
Wow.
Singly responsible. Matt has taken 1,200 square feet and turned it into a recreation of American Southwest geography.
Now, how big is the garden itself? I mean, it's a couple acres, isn't it?
It's a couple acres. It's 2.2 acres. And so this is 1,200 square feet. And what he has tried to do was develop a new plants from the New World and plants from the Old World. So now we would be entering the Central Garden, which is the largest open area in Sherman Library and Gardens. And it's the one area that may change the most. Many of these areas will not change, but that one will.
Okay.
There are 5 main planting beds in that section, and there are plants that are changed 5 or 6 times a year. We currently are beginning to grow some dahlias, which would be the notable flower you would see today.
Now, will people who know gardens and plants, will they plan tours around different plants at different times of the year?
I don't know if they do that because we have something blooming constantly.
Yeah. Where do we go from there?
From there, we would go to the conservatory, and that is the tropical rainforest. It is kept at 75 degrees and 75% humidity. So on some very moderate warm days in California, it can be a bit much. But it's like going into a rainforest. And in that area, we have a pond, which has koi.
I saw that, yeah.
Some of them are about 15 years old.
Wow.
They can get to be quite old, but ours are not. And we also have some red slider turtles in the pond with the koi. In addition to all kinds of tropical bananas, tropical ginger, variety of different category of plants from different parts of the world.
What does a membership cost?
I think a membership runs in the $40 to $60 range.
Annually?
For a year. And it entitles you, it gives you several free admission tickets. You can have friends come and join you. And you get a newsletter that comes out advertising what's happening each month. So it's really, and it supports the library.
Sure.
We are self-supporting, and we can always use a few new members.
Sure. Catherine, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
I know you're a busy person. There's tours ready to come in now, so I
Thank you.
appreciate your time, and we'll see how many people
Well,
from
I
the
hope
village.
people will enjoy. Come
Yeah.
back.
I did.
Good.
Wow. And now let's see what Susan has to say.
I'm here today at a little gem of a restaurant in Newport Beach, the Bluewater Grill. And with me today is Ruth, the manager of the restaurant. So Ruth, pleasure being with you today at this hidden gem of a restaurant that's really off the beaten tracks that I think a lot of people may not know about. So Ruth, maybe you can fill us in on this. It's a seafood restaurant, but it has quite a history.
Yeah.
Could you start with telling us a little bit about the history? It's transformed itself a few times, it sounds like.
Yeah, so we're located in the village, it's called the Cannery Village, and hence the cannery being across the street from us here where they used to can sardines in the day. This used to be a fishing, it's called the sea shanty back in the 40s. It used to be where the cattle boats would be, Davy's Locker, all the, many cattle boats. There were probably 10 boats that were parked out here at a time. Cattle boats. That's deep sea fishing excursions. So,
okay.
Yeah, so that's one of the coolest things. It was back in the 40s, the sea shanty. Then it became Delaney's, probably in the 70s, and then we've been here since '96 as the Bluewater Grill.
Oh my gosh.
And we are famous for bringing our own fish in. We have the boat called the Pelikia, which is the owner's boat, and we go out on that and catch harpoon swordfish and some other things if they're along in the way. And some things we would cook on board, but most of the times we bring the fish back here. We'll send them out to other stores so they can have the fresh cut and the fresh catch. It's quite amazing. It's a different taste of it, like particularly the swordfish.
Oh, I can
It's
imagine.
so tender and just very moist and just out of this world.
So this is the go-to place for fish.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
Newport Beach.
definitely.
And I'm amazed at how many fish restaurants, so-called fish restaurants, are around here. But so many of them do not have their own fishing boat. It
Correct.
brings it in fresh every day. That is quite a special deal going on
Yeah.
here. Now, the restaurant itself is quite large. I was surprised at that. It seats how many people, would you say?
I'd probably say about 220.
Oh, that's a
Total.
big restaurant, and you have a wonderful bar. And it has, what strikes me about this place is it has this wonderful kind of worn feel to it that's very comfortable, very kind of homey, and I can see how you probably attract a lot of locals here, too.
Definitely, yeah. So it's kind of the Cheers of Newport Beach.
Is it?
You know, we call it still the Bluewater Grill, but it's
Right.
a very local spot.
Uh-huh.
You know, we know a lot of people by their names.
I bet.
People come here just to see us and try out new things if we have certain specials.
Sure.
You know, fish specials. We do carry about 8 to 10 different fresh fish daily, and we prepare them different ways. You know, we can offer different sauces. So one of my favorites is blackened, perhaps swordfish, with a tropical fruit salsa on it. So it's a nice sweet and hot combination.
Oh, that
So it's
sounds
lovely, yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And are you open for breakfast also, or?
No, unfortunately, Monday through Sundays, 11 to 9.
Okay.
That's our COVID hours.
All right.
But we possibly be going back to 10 o'clock on the weekends, Friday and Saturday nights, hopefully, in
a
time
little bit
here.
later.
Yeah.
Yes. And do you have happy hours here?
We do offer happy hour Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 6:30 in the bar.
Oh, that's very generous. And small plates in the bar, that
Yeah.
sort of thing too.
Gives you a chance
Lovely.
to try different items, you know, smaller portions. That way,
Right.
next time you come and have a big meal, you say, "Hey, I had that calamari last time. It was
Yeah.
delicious. I'd love to try that again."
Sounds great.
Yeah.
And hearing about all your fresh fish and the wonderful chef, maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of the best sellers here, the most popular dishes.
Yeah. So chipina is one of our favorites that people love. It's a marinara base, and it's got chunks of fish in it, shellfish, clams, mussels. It's a little bit of crab meat, some shrimp. Just a delicious.
Is that always on the menu
Yes,
too?
yes, that's one of our
fabulous.
favorites. And then we also have another favorite that's very popular is a lemon pepper crusted mahi mahi. So it's a lemon pepper crusted piece of meat or fish, and it's served atop a bed of spinach and scalloped potatoes, and it's got a chili cilantro hollandaise sauce on it. Many people ask me if it's really spicy, and I say, well, it's not enough to make you break a sweat, but excuse me, it's not enough to make you cry, but it might make you break a sweat, is what I say, just to kind of.
Great description.
Yeah,
I
so,
like that.
yeah.
That's a good one. Yes, and lunch specials. Any specials for lunch?
Yeah, well, lobster rolls turned out to be a huge hit for us, so we offer that either hot or cold with a hot buttered or cold with a mayonnaise mix. Served with a house-made potato chips
Right.
on a traditional lobster roll.
Let's get back to some of the other luncheon specials. I understand you have a fabulous clam chowder.
Yes, we do.
And anything else?
Well, along with that, we do serve fresh sourdough bread as your arrival. So it goes wonderfully with the chowder.
And you make the bread here.
It's par-baked, but we do bake it off here.
Oh,
and it's just delicious.
Fabulous
sourdough.
Combination.
Fresh hot sourdough.
I bet that's
Can't
quite
beat
a
it.
hit.
Yes, it is.
And then to get here, now when we drove here today, we came on the 55, and then I'm not sure how we got here. Maybe, how would you get here from the 55?
So the 55 dead ends to Newport Boulevard going towards Balboa Peninsula.
Right.
You're going to cross over PCH. You're going to make a left on 32nd Street.
Okay.
A quick right on Lafayette, and a left on Lido Park Drive, and there you are. Can't miss us.
Easy peasy. Oh my gosh, that's terrific to know. Well, Ruth, thank you so much for filling us in on this hidden gem. I'm sure many of our Laguna Woods residents will be storming down the doors here to get into that clam chowder and all those wonderful fresh seafood dishes.
That's fantastic. I can't wait to have them join us sometime.
Looking forward
They'll
to
be
it.
hooked. I guarantee you that.
Thank you again, Ruth.
Have them ask for me. I'm Ruth.
We hope you enjoyed today's program about Newport Beach.
We live in an amazing area, so get out and enjoy some of the beautiful places just a few miles beyond the gates.
Just a mile or two from the Bluewater Grill, we found this remarkable pirate house. It's a private residence in a residential area, but it's become quite a drive-by attraction.